Good morning. Welcome to Living Therapy. I'm Frank D'Amato. So I'm going to take a moment to connect to what parts are up right now just in doing this. And I'm also aware immediately, I want to translate because parts is kind of a jargon that we use in internal family systems, which is the model, the primary model that I use. So I don't want to get too jargony. So what I mean when I say parts of me, I mean to say there are thoughts, feelings, intentions, energies inside me that have specific focus in my life, specific concerns and desires. And those become, we call them parts in internal family systems, but they're just aspects of ourselves that are kind of clustered around a particular thing, and they tend to have a type of voice in our head that drives us towards something or away from something or criticizes something. So I'm going to ask my teacher part, my teacher aspect of myself that you were just seeing. He was trying to explain the concept of parts, but I'm going to ask him to step back. And one of the things that you can learn from this, watching me do this, is these aspects of ourselves, they're not fixed. We can be in dialogue with them. We could ask them to soften back. We could ask them to make space. We could ask them questions. It's a kind of self-inquiry process. So I'm going to take a moment to see what is here now. And yeah, I can invite us all to do that. One way to work is to kind of begin to focus your attention to your inner world and asking a simple question of who's here? Who's here inside you right now? What thoughts, what emotion, what stirring is happening inside you? And really, in this pausing, taking the time to acknowledge inside whatever is here. So, for example, for me, I'm noticing I have an anxious energy. And I can tell I have this anxious energy by a slight trembling in my chest and at the top of my belly here. I'm going to pitch this down so you can see. I'm also working with my body. Slight trembling here and kind of a little bit of a band there. So part of this working is becoming aware of what's happening in our physical body that's connected to our autonomic nervous system. Bringing awareness to that begins to help regulate that. And I could also acknowledge inside, oh, I see you are anxious. And when I begin to do this, I begin to create space from the feeling of the anxiety here, not to make it go away, not to get away from it, but to actually have space from it so that I can be in relationship to it, so I can actually begin to care about it, to get to know it, to understand what is it anxious about. Is it afraid? Is there something in me that's afraid? Oftentimes, as we begin to separate, and in internal family systems working, there's a jargon term we call unblending, that I'm also going to try and separate from that term, and just use the word separate, and just separate from this anxiety a little bit. Again, not to go away from it, but to be with it, to care for it, to bring presence to it. And I feel settling in my body. And whatever you're noticing if you're beginning to pay attention to your own inner space here, just taking a few moments, just breathe with it and acknowledge. Do you have an anxious energy, or maybe a cognitive part, like trying to figure out what's happening. And notice what might happen if there was something like that, if you just asked it to soften a little bit so that you can be more aware and present of your own body here in the moment. What would that be like? The words that are coming up to me right now are that what we're doing here is the practice of being. We don't have, I really feel we don't have a lot of access to just being in our culture, in our society. We're so much pressure on us to be doing all the time. So much pressure to produce, to make money, to pay bills, to make the ends meet. But then even when we find ourselves, if we're lucky enough to find ourselves not stressed out like about money, like I've been fortunate enough to no longer have to be stressed about that, which has taken a lot of work in the physical world, but in the emotional world to get there. And yet there can still be this pressure to make more, to do more, to be more, which is all coming from the outside. It's all kind of a external energy that we take inside ourselves. This practice here is really about just being here in the moment. So I'm noticing I kind of went in a little head up here trip to talk a little bit. My explainer part was up. I'm going to have him soften back a little bit. And then as I do that, I acknowledge him. I see, I see that aspect of me, that explainer. Have him soften. And I can feel my presence and awareness sort of dropping down, and my chest kind of energy starts to feel like it expands and opens. I become more aware of the space in the room, the air that's touching my skin and holding the space around. As one meditation teacher I really like, Rock Kelly, says, the space that is already awake and aware around us. Right? Can go into that a little bit more in detail. That's a little bit of a deeper dive, but I want to just stay here in this energy of presence. And I'm wondering if anyone watching this can also feel maybe a sense of opening, more spaciousness, more calm in the body, maybe the mind, the thoughts beginning to settle or slow down a little bit. And if not, that's okay too. Maybe just being with what is. That's all this is, a practice of being with whatever is, not trying to make ourselves calm. Noticing if there's excitement and just being with that. And I can ask for space. I can just kind of be with that. So that was a kind of, talking meditation, kind of a little bit different way of bringing presence and awareness. Meditation can take many forms. It could be focusing on the breath, like the Vipassana meditation, or focusing on a candle. But there are many other forms. And this is a kind of different form I'm beginning to feel into. I kind of dance, being inside and then being connected. And I'm feeling more connected to you as I'm moving along here. So I'm grateful for your presence and your engagement right now. I can feel it. I can feel, it's a little bit cognitive because some part of me is like, I know that someone will watch and feel some degree of this. But even I'm going to have that just cognitive make a little space to actually allow myself to feel the energy of your intention in this moment, and to take a moment to send you, viewer, my sense of care and compassion